So this is what History Channel and any video you find in the English language won't tell you about the MiG-15 bis. First of all, okay, everyone knows the Korean War, Soviet pilots, Korean pilots, all this sort of shit. Fine. I'm sure there's a lot of good stories and a lot of things that actually happened that you can't just ignore. However, when you have this sort of document in front of you, this also can't be ignored. And when discussing the MiG and the Sabre, you should keep these things in mind. A lot of people will say the MiG can't dive past 0.92 Mach. Chuck Yeager wasn't able to do it. We tested the MiG, and that's what we determined. He said the air brakes came out automatically. The aircraft would enter a ridiculous high-speed spin from nosing up too hard, and so it was too dangerous. But what do we find in this technical manual? So let's see, y-axis, we've got velocity in kilometers an hour indicated, Mach number, 1 right there. Height, up here starts at 13,000 meters. Okay, this is the Mach number. This is speed. These are values like roll rate, how much they deflected the elevator, that sort of thing. So what happened in this dive? He dove past Mach 1. He broke the sound barrier, supposedly. How? How would he have done this if the air brakes deploy automatically? Surely this speed difference in height was not enough with the air brakes out to have broken it. The air brakes weren't out. Not only that, but he was able to pull to Mach 1 and sort of stayed at it for a while until he decelerated. So which one of these values is the value for how much he pulled on the stick? You can translate the Russian if you'd like, but this is the stick forces at a height of 10,600 meters. We've got a fresh Korean pilot. He's at 0.8 Mach. He's in a dive on a Sabre. And a Sabre has his wingman behind him. And the MiG sees right here. He gets to this point where he has to... The MiG wants to pull up. It wants to pull up a little bit. It wants to keep pulling up. So he pushes the stick forward. He keeps the aircraft in the dive. And all of a sudden, he gets to this point where he has to pull, he has to push less. And all of a sudden, he has to pull back on the stick to keep the aircraft diving. Isn't that odd? That's extremely odd. He now again has to push forward, except this time at just about, this spot right here is 0.2 Mach, just over 0.2 Mach. This gets crazy. This gets really crazy, because by 0.94 Mach, this is more stick forces than he's ever felt on the aircraft before. An order of magnitude more stick forces more. If he's not pushing enough right at that point, his nose is going to go straight up and he's going to spin. That is where the MiG high-speed 0.92 Mach spin comes from. So what did they do? In my headcanon, what they had done is they gave modified MiG-15s to the Koreans, to the North Koreans, sorry, that automatically had air brakes come out at this speed, just about this speed, to stop them from exceeding it. Because as you can see, it's just about there where all this starts happening. They would not enter these high-speed stalls. Why did Chuck Yeager's MiG do that? Because he had a Korean MiG. There is no documentation that I have found anywhere of a Russian Soviet MiG-15 having automatic air brakes. Ever. They probably trained their pilots a little bit more. They had more time. They were not at a war zone, okay? They were able to teach their pilots. This was a trained pilot who knew what would happen to the aircraft. Or maybe he didn't. Maybe this is the very first time the MiG-15 has been dove to this speed. And he figured it out. And all MiG pilots since have known. But the F-86 pilots, the ones who got to see mostly Koreans flying the MiG, who didn't know, got to see high-speed stalls, making extremely dangerous high-speed spins for pilots who had probably only practiced recovering from a spin once. And they just dove to 1,000 meters over the deck on this Sabre. And this wingman sees the MiG do this. And he tells everyone. And that's what you hear until the end of time. No one will go through this and read this book. There won't be a documentary that says, oh, but the MiG was able to dive past Mach 1. We're just wrong. No. It's part of pop culture. 0.92 Mach. That's a sacred number. And if you say that the MiG was able to go beyond that, no one believes you. It's just impossible. They've grown up knowing this. How could the History Channel be wrong? How could everyone have been lying? Oh, but they haven't been lying. They just didn't know. So, this is why I do this. It's a lot harder to fix what people already know than it is to give them the wrong information. People will hear something that they like. The Americans will see on TV that their Sabre was better at diving at high speeds. And they are. Because if you look at the Sabre's values, it sort of does the same thing with the stick, but it's not as extreme. The Sabre could do it better. So all you had to do really was tell a Sabre pilot, you'll notice this weird thing, but just do it. You'll be fine. But with the MiG, it was a lot more extreme. And I'm sure the stick forces were lighter, of course, especially on the E and the F. So they didn't have the problem. Maybe one guy messed up, but we don't hear about it. And it's fine. But don't let anyone ever say to you that the MiG could not dive past Mach 0.92, because what was actually happening was that it was harder, and that the pilots couldn't do it. But the plane could. You don't need an all-flying tail, though they are amazing. You just need to know what's going to happen. Don't just learn from other people. Learn for yourself, and if you are certain of what you know, you have learned, then you can share it with others. Do not take things you hear and tell others as if it is fact. Okay? And thank those who do the research for you and point you in the right direction, not just tell you you're wrong. Thank those who know aerodynamics, like Icarus, who has gotten me into all this shit. I got into this thinking I'm going to prove that Russian planes are fine. Okay. I don't know if I've done that yet, because there's still so much to do. And it's not just to prove something. It's to know whether or not what you believe is true.